YouTube, Awesome Rider here. Welcome to my review for Power Rangers issue 11. So, I want to say at the start, I think this was a good issue, kind of like the Cat issue from last week. I have some issues with it, but I think just objectively it was a well put together issue with a lot going on, so it was very entertaining and interesting, even though I have some sort of issues with some of the developments. Not as big of sort of WTF issues as a Cat Ranger, but you'll see what I mean as I keep going. They're basically looking for where the yellow emissary is. That's where we left off, and then they find the planet where it is, because they're kind of lost for a second, but then they find it. So they land there, and they encounter this, like, wispy little sentient hoodie thing, and they're like, you're attacking us with laundry, because it's clearly the yellow emissary, and then the yellow emissary. Nightmare on Emissary Street. There's something there. But Yellow Emissary finally makes themselves known, and it's really cool because when it first appears, it's like flashing between, because you know how they flash between the different forms, it flashes between Yellow Omega and mmpr Yellow, which is cool because it's two of Trini's main forms, and it's had this connection with Trini, so I thought it was just kind of cool. Like, they had a bunch of different cool ones, like Wild Force, I think Beast Morphers was in there, but I thought that was a cool one for it to open up to. And basically, it sort of gives an info dump on some of the stuff going on, and it reveals that I'm a little bit confused about some of it, to be honest, but this is what I got from it. That basically, when the emissaries were killed, every time an emissary is killed, it opens up the door for the Imperials to be revived. So all the Imperials to be revived. So that's what's allowing Zardos to use this crystal. It said, like, when the Imperials, like, I'm going to mess up saying the Imperials and the emissaries because their names are so close together, but when the emissary was killed, like, this crystal came into the world, I guess, or I don't know whether it came into the world or if it was just activated. I'm a little bit confused by the crystal's role in it. But basically it shows when the emissaries were killed, blue and red, it opened up the door for the Imperials to be resurrected, and they're being resurrected by Zardos, and the Omegas see that. And so I did like this. I liked that the Imperials weren't just a construct of Eltar, because I certainly found it interesting that they're currently working for Eltar, but I didn't like the idea of them solely just being kind of like this military force for them. I kind of liked them as their own entity, because I thought they were kind of interesting and mysterious and kind of intimidating, because it seemed like Drakkon was afraid of them. More on that later. I thought that was interesting, and I like that they're a separate entity, because it leaves the door open for them to have more backstory and more of an independent character. That, like, obviously right now they're sort of under the control of Eltar, but that's not all they are. But they basically reveal all of that, and he says, like, this is where I'm gonna die. I think he says, you need to kill me. I don't know if that means they would have more control over the Imperials if they were the ones to do it rather than Zardos. But he wants them to do that. But it turns out they led the Imperials there, because it's a double cross from Drakkon. Saw this coming from a mile away. They practically warned us themselves every issue. And Drakkon gets free of his collar, and it's revealed that he's been talking to the emissaries. And basically, I guess it insinuates that they came in contact with him when he was in his prison world. And so, as he's been leading the Rangers there, that's what the Imperials have wanted all along, because they need to take out the last Imperial, or the last emissary, to free the remainder of the Imperials. And in exchange for them doing that, they, like, revive his morpher or create a new one, because then when he morphs, it's basically his old Ranger form, but it's kind of corrupted with this Imperial look, which looks kind of cool. I kind of dig it, and I kind of dig the idea of however this is done. Either the Imperials created their own faux version, or because they repaired it, it's got some Imperial power within it, or corruption. Maybe they'll use it to try to control him. I don't know, but it's kind of cool. But I'm a little bit disappointed that his first Ranger up again is just the Drakkon suit. You know, there's been a lot of speculation about when and if he would Ranger up. Would he be the new Blue Omega, which we know he's not, or something else? I'm kind of hoping maybe down the road we might get a new form for him if he goes on a new journey. But this was kind of neat, but a little bit predictable. And he betrays G and he kills him, or at least he defeats him. I don't remember. I think he said he needed him for something, so I don't know if he killed him completely. But it's pretty predictable. I'll kind of go on a tangent about that in a second. But basically, Drakkon was always meant to lead them there. So in a way, Zordon was right. I just don't want Zordon to feel like, oh, I was right about it, because they still did need Drakkon to fight the Imperials. Bottom line, I just don't like Zordon. But then the Imperials do arrive, and they face off against the Omegas, and they do wind up taking out the last emissary. So presumably, next issue then, the new Imperial, or the final Imperial, will be resurrected, and kind of, shirts hitting the fan, and all that. And so Drakkon's betrayal. Just the Drakkon betrayal is just so obvious, and I feel like I'm at war with myself. Of the two things I don't want to see from Drakkon from the beginning of this story, is I didn't want to see a redemption arc, but also I knew he was going to betray them, but it's just so boring and basic and predictable. But my hope is, because there was also a cliche line in there when the Imperial was talking to him about, like, oh, you haven't gotten close to these Rangers, have you? I don't want him to have necessarily gotten close to them, but Drakkon being Drakkon, I get a feeling that there might be a triple cross in store. And so my hope is by the end of the story, you know, he's not like he reveals to be one of the good guys, but he kind of double crosses the Imperials and winds up doing something semi-helpful. And that's kind of the role I'd like to see Drakkon be, is not like a gray area character necessarily, like an anti-hero, but just not a completely evil character, like a dark gray character, if that makes any sense, where he's still a villain, but he's not like mustache twirling evil, and he might do stuff on occasion, and when he does it, like he's kind of formed a bond with Trini, so if he does something to help her, for example, it'd be one of those situations where you could debate whether he did it solely because it was going to benefit him, or because he has a soft spot for her. Something like that. That's what I would ultimately want to see from his character. It's not for him to turn good or anything like that. But him just completely betraying the Rangers also seems really basic. So I'm hoping that there's more to the story and that we maybe get a new Ranger form eventually. And that's kind of what I'm talking about with this issue, is that I thought it was really good and solid and a big issue and a big step forward into the next ending arc here. But I was a little bit annoyed by the cliched nature of Drakkon's betrayal. Like, again, especially since they basically warn you about it every issue. And it's just, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on that. And I'm a little bit confused by the Imperials and the crystal and, like, what the crystal has to do with it. I know it was used to revive it, but it was like, was that crystal born from another world when the emissaries were destroyed? Or did it always exist and then it was powered up when this happened? Is the reason that the emissaries are keeping the Imperials at bay is because they once sealed them? I just have a lot of questions, both on stuff they haven't said yet and the way they've said things now that kind of confuse me. But I still, overall, thought this was a solid issue. I would give it a 4, just because even though I have some mixed thoughts on some of the developments, I thought it was a very big issue, and it's really setting us up for an interesting final conflict here. But what did you guys think of the issue? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you know notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.